I want you to stop right where you are and listen to me very carefully, because what I'm about to share with you in the next few minutes has the power to completely transform your relationship with money, abundance, and prosperity forever. Now, I know that sounds bold, I know it sounds almost too good to be true, but I promise you, if you stay with me, if you truly open your heart and your mind to what I'm going to tell you, you will walk away from this moment a different person. You will understand something about the nature of abundance that most people never grasp in their entire lifetime. And here's the most beautiful part, the part that makes my heart absolutely sing with joy. This transformation doesn't take years of struggle, it doesn't require you to work yourself to the bone, and it certainly doesn't depend on your current circumstances, how much money is in your bank account right now, or what your financial history looks like. The change begins right here, right now, in this very moment we're sharing together. You see, I've spent years studying the invisible laws that govern our universe, the spiritual principles that determine whether we live in lack or abundance, in struggle or ease, in poverty or prosperity. And what I've discovered, what I've proven time and time again in my own life and in the lives of countless others, is that money, true lasting wealth, doesn't come from where you think it does. It doesn't come from working harder or longer hours. It doesn't come from manipulating others or scheming and plotting. It doesn't even come primarily from your education or your connections, though these things certainly have their place. No, my dear friend, money comes from something far more powerful, far more reliable, and far more available to you right now than any of those external things. Money flows from your consciousness. It flows from your thinking. It flows from the words you speak and the images you hold in your mind. And most importantly, it flows in direct response to spiritual law. Laws that are just as real and just as reliable as the law of gravity. Now, I can almost hear some of you thinking, but Florence, I've tried positive thinking before and it didn't work. Or, I've said affirmations and nothing changed. Or, I've visualized and prayed and still my bank account is empty. And I want you to know, I understand that frustration completely. I've felt it myself in the darker moments of my own journey. But here's what I've learned. And here's what I need you to really hear. Those approaches failed not because the law doesn't work, but because they were applied without true understanding. They were applied with doubt underneath. They were applied with fear lurking in the shadows. They were applied with one part of your mind saying the words, while another part was secretly contradicting them, canceling them out, making them powerless. You see, the universe doesn't respond to what you say with your lips alone. The universe responds to what you truly believe in your heart. The universe responds to your deep conviction. The universe responds to the vibration of your entire being, conscious and subconscious, and that's what we're going to address today. You see, most people come to spiritual work with what I call a divided consciousness. They say their affirmations in the morning, they visualize their desires, they speak their words of power, and then they spend the rest of the day worrying. They build their house of faith with one hand while tearing it down with the other. I've watched this pattern unfold countless times. A woman comes to me and says, Florence, I've been affirming abundance for 6 months. I say my statements every single day, but nothing's changing. And then, in the very next breath, she tells me how worried she is about her bills. She tells me how she can't afford this or that. She tells me all the reasons why money is scarce and hard to come by. Do you see the contradiction? She's trying to plant roses while watering weeds. Your subconscious mind is always listening. Always. It doesn't take a vacation. It doesn't clock out at 5 o'clock. Every word you speak, every thought you entertain, every emotion you feel, your subconscious is recording it all, accepting it all as instruction, as direction for what to create in your outer world. This is why I tell my students, you must become a guardian at the gateway of your thoughts. You must stand watch over your inner conversations. Because these inner conversations, these habitual thought patterns, are writing the script of your life far more powerfully than any affirmation you speak for 5 minutes each morning. Let me share something that might surprise you. The subconscious mind doesn't understand negatives. When you say, I am not poor, your subconscious simply hears poor and goes to work creating more experiences of poverty. When you say, I will not be sick, it hears sick and manifests illness. This is why affirmations must always be stated in the positive. You must claim what you desire, not push against what you don't want. But here's where it gets deeper, and this is what most teaching on affirmations misses entirely. It's not just about the words being positive. It's about the feeling beneath the words. It's about the vibration that accompanies your statement. You can say, I am abundantly supplied all day long, but if underneath those words there's a trembling fear, if there's a silent voice whispering, but what if it doesn't work? If there's a clenched desperation in your solar plexus, that's what your subconscious receives. That's what goes into the creative medium of mind. Your subconscious responds to conviction. It responds to the feeling of certainty. It responds to that quality of consciousness that already knows, that already possesses, that already has what it desires. This is what I mean when I speak of faith. Real faith isn't blind belief. Real faith is a quality of knowing. It's a settled assurance in your heart. It's the ability to see with your inner eye what hasn't yet appeared to your outer eye and to feel it as absolutely real. Think about this for a moment. When you know you have money in the bank, there's a certain feeling that accompanies that knowing. There's ease, there's relaxation, there's confidence. You don't worry about the check you just wrote because you know it's covered. That's the feeling you must bring to your affirmations. That's the consciousness you must establish. Not the desperate hoping of someone who's broke and terrified, but the calm assurance of someone who knows their supply is certain. Every morning, you must mentally rehearse this truth. Before the bills arrive, before the doubts come screaming, before your logical mind starts calculating lack, you speak your word. You declare, Infinite Spirit, open the way for my immediate supply. Let all that is mine by divine right now reach me, in great avalanches of abundance. Notice I said times great avalanches asterisk. Not a trickle, not just enough to scrape by. Avalanches. Because God doesn't do poverty. The universe doesn't deal in limitations. Those are human inventions, manufactured in the factory of fear. I knew a woman who came to me in absolute despair. Her husband had lost his position, they were 3 months behind on rent, and eviction was imminent. She wept as she told me, I've tried everything. I've looked for work, we've sold what we could, and still nothing comes. I said to her, You've tried everything except the one thing that works. You've tried human effort without spiritual recognition. You're rowing your boat with tremendous energy, but you haven't raised your sail to catch the divine wind. I taught her to stop looking at the empty bank account, stop rehearsing the disaster, stop telling everyone her tale of woe, which only planted more seeds of lack. Instead, every morning and evening, she stood before her mirror and declared, I am a child of the infinite. My supply is endless, immediate, and right at hand. Was it easy for her? No. Her mind fought back viciously. It screamed, You're lying to yourself. Look at the facts. But she persisted. She treated those negative thoughts like uninvited guests, acknowledged them, then firmly showed them the door. Within 1 week, her husband received a telegram about a position he'd applied for 6 months earlier and forgotten about. The salary was double what he'd been making. Within 2 weeks, they had paid every debt and had money remaining. Magic? No. Law, spiritual law, as reliable as gravity. She changed her consciousness, and her world rearranged itself to match. This is what I mean by treatment. You're not begging God to change your circumstances. You're aligning yourself with the truth that has always existed. You're remembering what you forgot in your panic, that you are an inlet and an outlet of infinite supply. The moment you truly accept this, something shifts in the invisible realm. Doors you didn't know existed swing open. People think of you out of nowhere and offer opportunities. Money comes from directions you never anticipated. I've seen it happen with such peculiar precision that it would make a skeptic's head spin. A woman needed exactly $300 by Thursday. She did her spiritual work, holding fast to the vision of supply. On Wednesday, she received a check for $300 from a company refund she'd completely forgotten about from 2 years prior. The universe has no problem with details. It's not confused about timing. Your job isn't to figure out times how times or times when times or times from where asterisk. Your job is to establish the consciousness of abundance, then get out of the way. Your subconscious doesn't reason, it doesn't argue. It simply accepts what you persistently feed it and begins to outpicture that in your world. If you feed it worry about bills, it says, all right, more situations to worry about bills. If you feed it gratitude for abundance, it says, wonderful, more reasons to feel abundant. This is why affirmation without feeling is just noise. You can say, I am rich 1,000 times while feeling poor inside, and nothing shifts. But when you say, I am grateful for the abundance flowing to me now, and actually times that warm certainty in your chest, in your belly, that's when the subconscious receives the instruction. I worked with a woman who'd been affirming prosperity for months with no results. I asked her to stop affirming and start noticing. For 1 week, I said, just notice every single thing you already have that someone somewhere is praying for. She came back transformed. I have running water, she told me, tears in her eyes. I have a bed. I have working eyes to read with. I have a body that wakes up every morning. That noticing created times feeling asterisk. That feeling impressed the subconscious. Within 3 weeks, an unexpected contract came through that doubled her income. You see, the universe doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your vibration, your emotional state, the consciousness you're broadcasting. And you cannot fake that vibration. You can't pretend your way into abundance, but you can genuinely find things to appreciate right now, and that genuine appreciation shifts everything. Now, let's talk about what I call the supply chain of the universe. Most people think supply comes from their job, their spouse, their business, their investments. And so they live in constant fear that those channels might close. They clutch, they control, they manipulate. But here's the truth that sets you free. Your supply comes from God *, from the universe, from infinite intelligence, whatever name you prefer. Your job, your business, these are merely channels through which supply flows. They are not the source. When you understand this deeply, truly understand it, you stop being afraid. A channel closes? Fine. The universe will open another one. You lose a client? Wonderful. That makes room for 3 better ones. Your employer downsizes? Perfect timing for the new opportunity that's already on its way. I've seen this play out so many times it would make your head spin. A man loses what he thinks is his dream job and falls into despair. 6 months later, he's running his own company, making 3 times the salary, saying that firing was the best thing that ever happened to me. A woman's biggest client leaves without warning. 2 weeks later, a contract 10 times larger lands in her lap. The universe is always upgrading your good when you let it, but you have to release your death grip on the old channels. You have to trust that source is bigger than any one person, any one opportunity, any one stream of income. This is where most people stumble. They intellectually understand the concept, but emotionally they're still white-knuckling whatever they've got, terrified it'll slip away. And that very fear, that clutching, blocks the new good trying to reach them. I tell my students, hold everything lightly, appreciate what you have, yes. Be grateful for current blessings, absolutely. But don't strangle them with fear-based attachment. Don't make anything your God except the infinite intelligence that sources all things. When you truly grasp that your good comes through people and situations, but from the universe itself, you walk differently. You breathe differently. You stop begging and start expecting. You stop manipulating and start allowing. You stop trying to convince the universe and start knowing it already knows. I've watched people exhaust themselves for years, trying to force doors open, pushing against reality with their bare hands, demanding that life comply with their timetable. And then one day, they simply decide. They decide that what they want already exists. They decide that the universe heard them the first time. They decide to rest in the knowing, instead of drowning in the asking. And that's when everything shifts. Because here's what most people don't understand about divine timing. It's not slow. It's not making you wait for the sake of building character or teaching you patience through suffering. Divine timing is actually instant, but you have to be the right person to receive what you're asking for. The universe isn't delaying your good. You are. With every moment you spend identifying as someone who doesn't have it yet, every single day you wake up and practice being the person who's still waiting is a day you push your desire further away. Every single day you rehearse lack, you're casting yourself in that role. You're the actor who keeps showing up to play the part of person without what they want, and then you're confused when that's the only role you get. The universe can only give you what matches your conviction. Not your hope, not your wish, not your desperate plea in the middle of the night. Your conviction, your knowing, your unshakable certainty that it's done. I want you to think about something for a moment. Think about breathing. You don't hope you'll breathe tomorrow. You don't affirm every morning, I am now breathing. I deserve to breathe. I am open to receiving breath. You just breathe. There's no question. There's no doubt. There's no backup plan if breathing doesn't work out. That's the energy of manifestation. That's the frequency of faith. When you know something is yours, you stop checking for evidence every 5 minutes. You stop interrogating reality, demanding proof, looking for signs that you're not delusional. You simply proceed as if it's handled. You make space in your life for it. You speak about it in present tense or past tense, never future tense. Because future tense means not now, and not now is a frequency that creates more not now. I had a student once who wanted to manifest a relationship. She'd been alone for years, and she was so hungry for love that her entire energy field was screaming desperation. She would text me constantly, "When will he come? Where is he? Did I do the visualization wrong? Should I try a different affirmation?" And I finally told her, "You're treating your desire like a missing person. You're putting up flyers, checking the news, filing reports. What if you just started setting the table for two?" She looked at me like I was insane. But she did it. She started living like someone who was loved. She bought a bigger bed. She cleared space in her closet. She stopped talking about being single like it was a chronic condition. She stopped attending therapy sessions dedicated to why I'm still alone. She simply decided that her person was on their way, and she had nothing to do but be ready and enjoy her life in the meantime. 3 months later, she met him. Not because she did a special ritual, not because she finally said the right affirmation, but because she became the energetic match for the relationship she wanted. She stopped broadcasting, "I'm alone and it's a problem," and started broadcasting, "I'm whole and I'm ready." The universe reorganized itself to match her. This is what I need you to understand. You are not powerless in this process, but your power doesn't come from forcing or controlling. Your power comes from decisiveness. From the moment you decide something is yours, the universe has no choice but to deliver it. If you maintain that decision, if you don't waver back into doubt, if you don't keep reopening the case you already closed. Most people make a decision on Monday and unmake it by Wednesday. They declare something is theirs in the morning and revoke it by evening. They plant a seed and then dig it up every day to see if it's growing yet. And then they wonder why nothing blooms. This inconsistency creates a vibrational confusion that stops everything in its tracks. The universe responds to your dominant frequency, not your occasional hopeful thought. When you spend 5 minutes affirming abundance and 5 hours worrying about bills, guess which signal you're actually broadcasting? I've watched people do this dance for years. They light candles and say prayers and create vision boards, and all of that is beautiful, it truly is. But then they check their bank account with dread in their stomach. They open bills with resentment coursing through them. They see someone else's success and feel that familiar sting of jealousy. And every single one of those moments is a prayer too. Every emotion is speaking to the invisible forces around you. Every feeling is placing an order with the universe. You cannot curse your situation Monday through Saturday and expect Sunday's affirmations to override it all. That's not how this works. The spiritual law is mathematical in its precision. You get what you predominantly ARA, not what you occasionally want. Here's what genuinely works. Choose your reality and stop negotiating with it. Decide what is true in the spiritual realm and refuse to let the physical world talk you out of it. When the evidence contradicts you, smile and say, "Interesting, that's the old story completing itself. I'm already living in the new one." This is not denial, this is dominion. There's a profound difference. Denial says, "I won't look at my problems." Dominion says, "I see the current circumstances, and I choose not to empower them with my agreement." Denial is running away from what is. Dominion is standing firm in what's becoming. I knew a woman who was being evicted from her apartment. She had 30 days to vacate. Every friend she had was telling her to panic, to scramble, to compromise on something less than what she wanted. But she had been studying these principles, really studying them, and she decided to do something radical. She blessed that apartment and thanked it for serving its purpose. She declared that something far better was already for self, prepared for her. She spoke to her new home as though it already existed, and she meant it. That's the crucial part. She wasn't performing, she was perceiving. She saw it completed. Every day, she'd walk through her cramped apartment and thank her beautiful new spacious home for receiving her. She'd sit in her uncomfortable chair and feel the comfort of the furniture that was coming. She treated the invisible as more real than the visible. With 3 days left before eviction, a friend called out of nowhere. Someone was leaving the country unexpectedly and needed to sublet their apartment immediately. It was twice the size, in a better neighborhood, for less money than she'd been paying. And it was available exactly when she needed it. Coincidence? Only if you believe in coincidences. I don't. I believe in spiritual law operating with perfect precision. This is what's available to all of us when we stop being spiritual tourists and become spiritual residents. When we stop visiting faith on Sundays and start living from it on Tuesdays. When we treat the invisible realm with more respect than the visible one. Your thoughts are not just things happening in your head. They're seeds planted in fertile soil. Your words are not just sounds evaporating into air. They're commands issued to creative forces that must obey. Your feelings are not just internal weather patterns. They're magnetic frequencies attracting corresponding circumstances. This means you have far more power than you've been taught. It also means you have far more responsibility. You cannot keep thinking poverty and speaking lack and feeling resentment while expecting abundance to somehow find you anyway. That's not faith, that's magical thinking, and there's a difference. Faith is knowing that the bridge is there, even when you can't see it yet. It's walking toward your good with certainty, while simultaneously putting one foot in front of the other in the physical world. I remember a woman who came to me wanting to heal her relationship with her sister. They hadn't spoken in 5 years. She wanted to do the spiritual work, to forgive, to release. And she did. She prayed, she affirmed, she visualized reconciliation. But she never picked up the phone. She never wrote the letter. She never took a single action in the direction of what she was claiming to want. And nothing changed. Because the universe responds to movement. It responds to commitment demonstrated through action, not just through thought. So I asked her, if you truly believed reconciliation was possible, what would you do? And she said, without hesitation, I'd reach out. So I said, then that's your next step. The spiritual work prepares the soil, but you still have to plant the seed. Within a week, she had written the letter. Within a month, they were talking. Within 6 months, the relationship was healed. Not because the affirmations were magic words, but because the affirmations changed her consciousness, and her changed consciousness led to inspired action. This is how manifestation actually works. You don't sit on your couch affirming a new job while ignoring opportunities. You don't visualize perfect health while eating garbage and never moving your body. You don't claim abundance while refusing to look at your bank account or take responsibility for your finances. The spiritual work changes you. And when you change, your actions change. And when your actions change, your results change. It's not bypassing. It's not just think positive. It's a complete transformation of consciousness that naturally expresses itself in your physical reality. And here's what they'll never tell you in those instant manifestation videos. Sometimes the action you're called to take is exactly the thing you've been avoiding. Sometimes the bridge to your healing is having the hard conversation. Sometimes the bridge to your abundance is getting professional help with your money trauma. Sometimes the bridge to your dream life is ending the relationship that's draining your life force. The spiritual work gives you the strength to do what needs to be done, but it doesn't exempt you from doing it. I learned this the hard way, like most of us do. There was a period in my life when I was waiting for divine intervention to solve a problem that required my participation. I was praying, affirming, meditating, all the spiritual practices, but I wasn't dealing with the practical reality in front of me. And one day, in the silence, I heard so clearly, I've given you hands, use them. It wasn't harsh, it was loving. Like a parent encouraging a child who's capable of more than they're attempting. I had been treating spirituality like a way to avoid responsibility, but real spirituality increases your ability to respond. That's what responsibility actually means. Responsibility. The ability to respond to your life with wisdom, courage, and action. So, here's the truth they won't put in a 30-second video. You are a co-creator, not a customer. You're not ordering from a cosmic menu and waiting for delivery. You're participating in the unfolding of your own life. Your consciousness sets the direction, and your actions pave the road. And when those two things align, when your inner world and your outer world are moving in the same direction, that's when you see what people call miracles, but they're not violations of natural law. They're the natural result of working in harmony with spiritual principle. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, Florence, this all sounds lovely in theory, but how do I actually live this way when everything around me seems to be falling apart? And that's a fair question. Because I'm not asking you to pretend everything is fine when it isn't. I'm not suggesting you put on rose-colored glasses and skip through life ignoring reality. What I'm saying is that your current reality is the result of your past patterns of thought and speech. And your future reality will be created by what you're thinking and saying right now. So when everything seems to be going wrong, that's actually the most important time to hold to spiritual principle. That's when your words carry the most power, because you're either going to reinforce the pattern that created the problem, or you're going to break it. I worked with a man once whose business had failed. He'd lost everything, or so it seemed. And he came to me absolutely defeated, ready to declare bankruptcy, ready to give up. I asked him what he wanted instead, not what he was afraid of, not what he was trying to avoid. What did he actually want? He said, I want to build something solid, something that serves people, something I can be proud of. So I told him to stop talking about the failure, stop telling the story of what went wrong. Every time someone asked about his business, he was to speak about what he was building, not what he'd lost. It felt dishonest to him at first. He said, but Florence, I don't have a business anymore. How can I talk about what I'm building when I'm starting from nothing? And I said, you're not starting from nothing. You're starting from experience, from wisdom, from a clear vision of what you want to create. That's not nothing. That's everything. He started speaking differently. When people asked what happened, he said, I learned exactly what doesn't work, and now I'm building something better. He talked about his plans as though they were already unfolding. He described his ideal business as though it already existed in potential, just waiting to manifest. Within a year, he had a new venture that was thriving, but the real miracle wasn't the business. It was the transformation in him. He'd learned that he wasn't at the mercy of circumstances. He was the creative center of his own experience. This is what I mean by working with spiritual law. You don't deny the present facts, you just refuse to. Build your future out of them. Your word is the bridge between the invisible and the visible, between what is and what can be. And you get to choose, in every moment, what you're going to build that bridge toward. Now here's something that might surprise you. This work isn't about being perfect. It's about being persistent. You're going to slip up. You're going to have moments where fear takes over and you speak from limitation. I still do it myself sometimes. We're human. The difference is, now you know what you're doing. So when you catch yourself speaking fear or lack, you simply correct it. You don't make it mean you've failed. You just say, no, that's not what I'm claiming. This is what I'm claiming instead. You treat it like correcting your aim. You're not throwing the whole game away because one shot went wide. You just adjust and take the next shot, and gradually, it becomes more natural. The new patterns start to feel normal. Speaking from faith instead of fear becomes your default setting. That's when life gets really interesting, because you're no longer working against yourself. Your inner world and your outer world start to harmonize. The things you need begin showing up without you having to force or manipulate or struggle. And that's when life becomes playful again. That's when you stop treating manifestation like a grim battle and start treating it like a dance. You begin to notice the winks from the universe, the synchronicities that make you laugh out loud, the person who mentions exactly what you needed to hear, the book that falls open to the perfect page, the coincidence that's so perfectly timed it can't possibly be random. These aren't accidents. They're confirmations. They're the universe saying, yes, I hear you, I'm working on it. Keep going. And here's what nobody tells you about this level of consciousness. It doesn't mean everything becomes easy. It means everything becomes meaningful. You still face challenges, but now, you see them as redirections rather than rejections. You still encounter delays, but you trust they're protecting you from something you couldn't see. The person who didn't hire you, they just saved you from a toxic workplace. The relationship that ended, it cleared space for the right person. The door that closed, it was hiding a wall, and there's a better door just around the corner. This is what Florence Scovel meant when she talked about divine timing. It's not about things happening when you want them, it's about things happening when they should. And when you stop resisting that timing, when you stop throwing tantrums because reality isn't moving at your preferred speed, everything accelerates. Because you're no longer creating energetic friction. You're flowing with life instead of against it. Now, I want to be clear about something before we close. This isn't about perfection. You're not going to master your thoughts overnight. You're going to catch yourself spiraling into worry. You're going to notice old patterns creeping back in. You'll have days when you forget everything you've learned and fall back into fear. That's not failure. That's being human. The difference is, now you have tools. Now you know how to interrupt the spiral. You can catch yourself mid-worry and say, wait, I'm creating with my words right now. What do I actually want to create? You can feel the fear and choose a different thought anyway. Not because you're suppressing the fear, but because you're no longer letting it be your only advisor. And slowly, thought by thought, word by word, choice by choice, you build a new inner world. And that new inner world starts producing a new outer world. Your life becomes evidence of your consciousness. Not because you manifested a checklist, but because you became someone who naturally attracts what they desire. Someone who speaks life into being. Someone who walks through the world expecting good. This is what Florence Scovel discovered. This is what she taught. And this is what's available to you right now, in this moment. Not someday when you're more spiritual. Not after you read 50 more books or attend 10 more workshops. Right now. Because the only moment you can ever plant a new seed is now. The only moment you can speak a new word is now. The only moment you can shift your consciousness is this one. So what will you choose? Will you keep rehearsing the old story, the one where things are hard, where you're unlucky, where what you want never quite arrives? Or will you dare to speak a new story into existence? The universe is listening. It's always listening. And it's ready to rearrange reality to match whatever you consistently claim as true. Your word is your wand. Use it wisely. Use it boldly. Use it to create the life you were always meant to live.